Sometimes the meters in our cameras lie to us. I know, it's terrible to think, but they lie to us. And they give us an exposure value that is wrong for the scene. In this video, we're going to see what the problem is and how to deal with it. Hi, Peter Charles here of Hooked for Life Photography. And let's talk about the metering problem. Namely, the meters in our camera, despite all the bells and whistles they might have, are simple beasts, and they don't always get things right. And it's understanding why they don't get it right and what we have to do about it is part of the essentials of getting a good photo. Very quick story. My first adjustable camera was an Agfa Isolet 3, which is an adjustable camera that took roll film. And it took upwards of 7 steps to take a photo, and there was no light meter. And I rarely blew an exposure because I just simply judged the light and set the camera accordingly. When I got my first SLR in 1981, it came with a light meter, and I started screwing up exposures left, right, and center because I believed the meter. So what is going on? Why is it a problem? What can we do about it? So let's look at my card here. I've got a white card and a black card in front of me, and you can see that on the screen. And you can see I'm put the metering box right over the seam between those two cards. Now I want you to see what happens when I move it. Right now I have a black card and a white card, which is what it is in reality. So I'm going to move over to the black card, and did you see it goes gray? It's no longer black. And look at the difference in the exposure. Its shutter speed is 100 and the aperture is 2.8. Now I'll come back, and as soon as I get that square over, it starts to meter properly. Now look at the shutter speed. 320 and the aperture is 4.5. Now let's go to the white. Uh-oh, the white's gone gray, and the shutter speed is now 500 of a second, and the f-stop is 5.6. Go back to the middle, and it meters properly. So what's going on here? Where's the problem? Well, our meters try to reduce everything to an average gray, middle gray. And that works for most scenes. I mean, if you're out on vacation with your family and, you know, you've got some buildings and some trees and your family and the street and you take a picture, that all those different tones and all those different colors are going to give you an average that's pretty close to properly exposed. So you get a very nicely exposed photo and you're in great shape. Everything's wonderful. But what happens if the background is mostly dark or mostly bright? That's where we get into problems. So I'm going to put up 6 photos. 3 will be against a bright background. 3 will be against a dark background. And you'll see what I had to do in order to get around the problem. So what I'm actually doing with the bright backgrounds is deliberately overexposing according to the meter. And when I got to the dark backgrounds, I was deliberately underexposing according to the meter in order to get the correct exposure for all 6 photos. So you'll see as we go through these photos that, you know, just because the meter said, you know, there's the exposure, there's 0 on that scale that we've been looking at all along that says we're properly exposed. But, you know, when we go over here, it's still at 0, but we've got a gray card. When we go over here, we've got a white card. It's still at 0. There's your problem. That's what I had to do with these photos, is try to get the exposures correct for the photo by ignoring the meter and deliberately underexposing or deliberately overexposing. So let's go through them very quickly. I'm going to shut up. We'll just put them on the screen, and then we'll finish off with the wrap-up. Okay, there you can see the problem and the solution. Don't always believe your meter. Look at the background. Is it a bright sky? Is it a dark wall or a dark forest? Is the subject dominating the metering, or is the subject not dominating the metering? When the subject is not dominating the metering, you get into problems because now the meter is affected by the background and is not doing a good job and is not giving you the correct reading. Now, there are ways around it, but you still have to be aware. So, for example, I've got a gray shirt. If I meter this gray shirt, the exposure will come out okay. Well, what was to happen if I had a white shirt or a black shirt? It would screw up the exposure. So even though the background was fine, the color of my shirt would mess things up. So all these different things, when you're looking at a scene, you got to think about does this give me an average exposure where the 0 on that scale is the correct one? Or does that give me problems where the exposure is going to be off because it's predominantly dark or predominantly light? So just remember, just because that meter says you're properly exposed, it can be fooling you. So keep that in mind and you'll get a lot better photos. Cheers.